What are we doing? Hi.
Hey, we're talking. What are we talking today?
We are talking pitch decks, the wonderful
Pitch
world of
decks.
pitch decks. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you have created as our, what is your title again? What are you doing
Uh,
around here?
the creative director and maybe chief growth officer if we ever get any money.
Chief Growth Officer.
I
That's a,
know
is
we were
that,
told we were told we need. Someone told us that we need like titles, even though we didn't really talk about titles particularly. We're just like making it happen. But if we need titles, probably you know, chief growth officer is kind of what I would be doing, even thinking about creative because I'm trying to grow every day. It's about what kind of marketing and promotion can we do that helps grow the business. So.
so what am I? Am I CEO? What's my title?
Think you're CEO. I think you're CEO and chief winemaker, right? CEO winemaker.
Yes.
We could look at the deck
Yes.
and probably see it. I think we have titles in the deck. But
Okay. All right.
but yeah, let's talk about the pitch deck. So what was the point of the pitch deck? Like, what are we trying to do? And obviously, I think a pitch deck. Um, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to convey our company purpose, talk about a problem in the industry, what's our solution, why now, what's the market size, who's our competition, also what is the product, what's our model, who's the team, and what kind of financial input do we need, and how do we make money on it, so an investor can get some return. And I think for me, what I learned from doing pitch decks for raising money for movies is I think this pitch deck or the pitch deck that I made, which I guess we'll put a link to, was also sort of geared towards the non-sophisticated investor, meaning non-sophisticated in the wine business. We are sort of targeting the kind of same people I think I was targeting when I raised money for movies, which is people that have excess money. They don't want to lose money. They like making money, but they have excess money and they want to do something fun in their life, like making a movie. It's just fun. You want to be able to go to your friends and be like, hey, I might make all my money from, the widget factory, but I'm also making a movie, a little horror movie. And like that's what you talk about at dinner. And I feel like so the pitch deck, I follow those same sort of rules, which is really just sort of visualizing it, making it exciting, trying to hit on those touch points that people would think would be exciting to be part of a wine business, while at the same time delivering some facts and really telling, what our story is, like that we want to make great wine at a low cost. We want to build this crazy brand that people love, and that we want to really deploy your contacts and your experience in the wine industry to make it all happen. So that was sort of our, or at least my approach to the pitch deck.
One of the things that I think is the most interesting thing that you hear that you have to have in a pitch deck is you're creating a new product. There's a problem in the market, and what is your solution? And sometimes it's like, I don't know, what like we're developing a new wine brand. Like what do we see as what's the problem? Like, and do we need a problem, or can we just be like, we're creating a new wine brand because it's fun and interesting, and we feel like that we have a lot of experience and expertise, and that Wineslut will be a fun brand? Like, what problem are we solving?
Yeah, for sure. I think that was one of the toughest things. I think if we're taking some liberty with the word problem here, but one of our pitches is that a lot of people, many people, maybe even most people, don't know what good wine is, but we want to give it to them anyway at a lower price point. And
Hmm.
so, how do we package that in a way that seems really approachable and fun, and maybe makes it easier to select off a shelf because we have a really great name. It's really identifiable. So I think if we want to talk about a problem, that was sort of what we pinpointed as a problem. It's sort of like we're not trying to sell you on all of the ways that this wine is better, because the truth is you probably, when I say you, I even mean me, I know it tastes good, what feels good and doesn't break my bank, but we're not trying to sort of sell you on those facts. We're just saying, look, we have a master of wine who knows how to do this and is going to give you something more than you think you are getting. And you're not gonna maybe know why you like it better, but it's just better, and it's not going to kill you on price. So I think that was the sort of the problem, if there is a problem. But you're right, it's really not a problem that's going to change the world. But I do think we landed on this great name, and I think it has a lot of legs. And I think we're trying to follow some similar successful models that have done the same. For example, I think you mentioned, maybe we'll talk about this. I'm sorry if I'm jumping out of order, but like some people gave us some comments back on the deck. We take all the negative comments too, and one of the comments was that our growth rate, our growth projections were unrealistic, saying we wanted to grow 100% every year. But then, we're trying to follow in the footsteps of something like White Girl Rosé or Babe Rosé, which had a 2,000% growth rate for like 4 or 5 years. And was that the most amazing rosé you could drink in the world, or was it just because they had this really cool name and they crafted the branding really well? And I think that's what we have. Like every time we mention Wine Slut to someone as a name, as a brand, they smile. They're like what? Or like, oh my God, that's so awesome. And it's like there's like an energy that we immediately feel, and I feel like we want to capture that energy and run with it and just sort of expand. So, are we reinventing? Are we curing diseases? No, but we are we are trying to make
Maybe
people
the
happy.
disease of sadness we're
Yeah,
curing.
exactly. Yeah,
I
boredom
think
and yeah, dry
boredom. Yeah.
January. Yeah,
It's funny. I've been thinking so much about Gen Z and millennials. Just got off an hour phone call with a guy who's building a company that's directly geared towards recommending wines to Gen Z and millennials because everyone is in such a tizzy. I mean, you go on Instagram now and it's like the sky is falling. No one's drinking. Millennials don't care about wine. They only want to drink White Claw. But I was having a conversation with this guy. It actually ended up being super interesting because I have historically with Holus Bolus and the Joy Fantastic. I mean, honestly, like the Gen Z and millennials not drinking are not our problem. Our problem is our backwards immigration policies that are making vineyard labor like absolutely impossible, doubling in 10 years. And our prices are going up and inflation is an issue. So when I've been looking at Wineslut, which is such a different brand from Holus Bolus and the Joy Fantastic, because that's a 20-year-old brand. It's kind of set in its ways. How do we make Wineslut a Gen Z millennial brand, which sounds so fucking cheesy, but not to go too far down that hole, besides just to say the problem that we're solving a little bit is, can we make delicious wine at a good price for a generation that is maybe ready to come off White Claw after college
yeah,
or after their 20s?
and that we'll spend a couple dollars more on something better because they you do
Right.
they will know this tastes better than what I just had at my friend's house. When we're having pizza, and I think you know we also they will remember and want to be part of a culture of a brand that's sort of more memorable and that seems to invoke some of the spirit and energy that they want to bring into their lives, which I think is a lot about what we're trying to do. Is a lot about you, really trying to make you the face of the brand. It's like going into Whole Foods and looking at the long line of wines. Like, what is the typical person? 20s, 30s choosing. Generally, it's probably based on a label and a price, and then they just sort of stick to it. They look for it next time they go because it's like though they know they like it. And there's a lot of loyalty there. Also, like, just so many. And how do you choose? How do I even choose? I know a little bit about wine and know what I like, but I still sometimes if I see the thing that I know I like, I don't want to spend more than 2 minutes thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So Nine Slit is really in your face, and you're going to remember it. So I think that has a lot of value.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things is that we're trying to create a little consistency with Wineslut. Actually, before we get to the pitch deck, I want to do a little follow up on what we talked about last time, which is getting a distributor or a broker within California. We had somebody from Monterey Bay. They're an import company, and they do a lot of California wine, but they also import some wines from Europe. Come in, taste the wines, really like the wines, and we are now sending samples up to their Northern California team to taste to see if they like them and if they would be willing to rep the wines, which is really great because last time I was on here, I had mentioned to you that I was scared to contact this company. The funny thing was I contacted the company and it was pure randomness that the salesperson that came in, or he was a sales manager, had not received the email yet. And he just happened to come by the tasting room to say,
Right.
I've been hearing about your wines. I've been hearing about Holus Bolus and I want to taste the Holus Bolus wines, and having Peter say, well, Wineslut is available. So it was just it felt kismety, which
Hmm.
was really nice, but he gave us some good feedback. Speaking of you just saying like people want a good label, but they also want maybe consistency in what they're drinking, and they're willing to spend an extra couple of dollars in order to be sure that the wine is actually good. And I'll backtrack just a second to say that I think there's some people who say, well, I don't know anything about wine. I just know what I like. And I always tell people that's basically all that matters. But also, After just having had the tasting room for so long and being in front of consumers, like people recognize quality. Even people who don't know anything about wine, they recognize quality. And I think you're right. They'll taste Wineslut and know that the quality that we're putting in the bottle is better than what they had at their friend's house on pizza night, whatever it was, the previous weekend when they were buying an $8 bottle from Trader Joe's, right? They're gonna see the difference, and I would hope that they would pay for this, right? That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
One of the pieces of feedback that we got was right now Wineslut, and I'll put a picture of a label up here. Right now Wineslut just says Wineslut red and Wineslut white, Wineslut sparkling, Wineslut rosé. Those are our 4 different wines right now. He said that, okay, we can sell those wines in the tasting room as red wine, white wine. The whole idea was we would be able to like move with the market, but in order to save costs, we printed up a lot of labels in advance, so we couldn't put the blend on the wine in order to get our label cost down, which was like originally for the rosé like $13 a case. It should be more like $6 a case. And we managed to get it down to $8 a case by printing up like 3 years of labels in advance, which now what I'm going to tell you is going to make that obsolete. We'll use those for like putting on bags in the tasting room.
I should say, just to
Yeah.
interrupt you, that we did that purposely because we thought that most people, or our market at least, isn't going to look at the blend, and it's not going to have particularly any meaning. They just want a red, white, a sparkling rosé that tastes good. But anyway,
Yeah, and I agree with you about the consumer, but one of the pieces of feedback that we got from Monterey Bay is that from a wholesale perspective, they're not selling to the final consumer. They're selling to a wine director at a restaurant or at a retail store. And when, let's say, the wine buyer at a retail store, Jim Knight at the wine house, he's bought Wineslut, he brings it in, he tastes the wines. His staff does not taste the wines. Jim is generally not on the floor selling wines. That's not his job. He has salespeople out there to sell the wines. So how does the salesperson on the floor know what that wine tastes like if they weren't tasting it with me? If they see Wineslut red, they don't have any idea what it is. So, but if it says on the back, 50% Gamay, 50% Pinot Noir, and someone comes in and says, I like a light-bodied, high-acid wine, or however a consumer might phrase that, without even tasting the wine, the salesperson would be able to recommend it. It was kind of our philosophy to say that we just make red and white wine. We don't tell people what that is. But they know it's going to be delicious every year. Now we're going to have to put a blend on the back of the label.
can you
If we're, yeah,
can you put a
planning on,
sticker on a label?
well, yes, but our plan is not to be bottling this wine by hand for the rest of eternity, which is what we're doing now. So on a
But I
bottling
just mean
line,
with the labels that we have, could you put a sticker that with the blend? Number one, is that like legal as far as labeling,
are
with
we
the
worried
rules?
about that?
And then second of all, like if you saw a wine bottle and turned it over and had a sticker which had the blend on it printed, would that make you think like, why does this have they didn't know what the blend was when they bottled it? Would you think negatively about it? Like probably, right? It would be weird.
Well,
I'm
maybe,
just throwing
but
that out there.
yeah, maybe, but I think if Monterey Bay or any other distributor is going to pick this up right now, they're going to have to pick it up as it is. We only have 50 cases of each of the wines remaining, and we want to sell a lot of that direct. So it'll be next year, I think, when we ramp up with somebody. And in 2024, the blend will be Pinot Noir and Gamay again. We've already sourced the wine and have figured that part out. And I'm hoping that the white will be similar, but we will start putting those blends on the label, on the back of the label. So it'll still say Wineslut white on the front and red, but when you turn it over, you'll be able to see the varietal breakdown.
Yeah.
When we sent the pitch deck out, I don't want to get into feedback yet, except this one thing, because we are talking about it. This is what a friend of mine who, they're wine people. He's like a finance guy. We had him look at it. He's a wine club member with Holus Bolus. And one of the things that he said was, if we're doing different blends each year, and the vintage is not on the label, it's on the top of the cork. We decided to put the vintage on the top of the cork because the labels look the same every year. So essentially we have what some people, when they're picking up the label, might see as a non-vintage wine because they don't see that it's on the cork, right? His question was, are you worried about consistency for the consumer? Because if the red is really different each year, the consumer needs to know what to expect from Wineslut. Like if it was Malbec and Mourvedre in 2022, that is a way different blend from the Gamay and the Pinot Noir. And so I do think that this feedback is correct and that we need to make that adjustment.
Meaning put the year on the back of the label as well?
No, I don't want to put the year. The year is okay on the cork.
Okay.
You
You're talking about putting the blend.
Now that we're going to have to get labels printed up, if we have to get labels printed up every year, I mean, Peter and I were talking about it last night. like this just, this increases our cost because we're just going to be making right now 500. We'll be printing it up for 1,000 labels, but we're not going to make 1,000 cases of wine. I don't know. Anyway, that's something that kind of has
I
to be
mean,
worked
a
out.
sticker that had the year and the blend actually would be sort of like a 2025 vintage and da 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 da. Sticker would actually be, I think, a cool thing. Like it would seem like an at like a you'd make it look cool, and it wouldn't seem it's like
Well,
something's
they
wrong or
can't do
cheap
that
or
on the bottling line. So on the bottling line, the labels get put on automatically.
Mhm.
We could do that when we're hand bottling,
Yeah.
but we can, like
But
I
we're
said, we
talking about
cannot.
500 cases. Like we couldn't do that for 500 cases.
Do you want to
Still too
go in
much.
and pull out bottles for 500 cases? You
I don't know.
don't. So the
Couple
reason I say this
hours
is
time.
because when we send wine to Sweden, we have to put like a special sticker
Mm.
on it, and we actually have started hiring people to come in and to unbox everything, to put the sticker on every bottle, and then to tape it back up. And when you have to do that for 50 or 100 cases,
That's a lot.
it's a total pain. So we
Okay.
could do it, but we would be paying somebody to do that, and then
Yeah.
again, you're raising your price per case. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and on the bottling
Or at the
line,
beginning, I do it because we're bootstrapping and trying to. I'm just,
you are never going to come out to the winery and spend your day putting stickers on stuff. You say
I
that
might.
now, and it's no, never. It
Yeah.
would never happen. It's never happening. You'd be like, well, I can't do this weekend because the kids have swim class or whatever it is you would say.
Right.
Okay.
All
I
right.
like that you're idealistic, but you live in LA, and so that doesn't. It's not
Yeah.
like you can take a day and do that. Okay, so that's our little update on the distribution side. I'll let you know we're sending samples up this week, and so the Northern California team will taste next week, and maybe we'll have distribution, maybe we won't. I don't know. We'll
Wow.
see. Which would be very exciting. One of the
Oh,
things that
you didn't tell me. So
yeah,
they're gonna who's tasting? Who's the
Monterey
candy?
Bay.
Oh, okay. You didn't tell me. They like got back to you and want to taste
I just
officially?
said that when we signed on here.
I know, but you didn't. This is the first time I'm hearing about it, like officially.
Well, I don't tell you everything. No, I'm
Wow.
kidding.
Yeah, we need to have more meetings.
No. We just confirmed with them this morning.
Okay.
So,
Oh, that's
yeah, I
amazing.
was kind of
Congrats.
saving it
That's
for the
huge.
podcast. Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
because
It's good to get
I think we
somebody
should.
interested.
I'm enthused that they are at least going to the next step. That's great.
Yeah, the next step is for them to, and actually that means that they're interested in what's in the bottle and not
Yeah.
just like the label. Maybe the
Yeah.
label is already past muster, and then they'll see if the wine's good. But I have so much confidence in the 2023s and in the
Yeah, they're
2024s going forward. They're both
yeah,
really, really good wines.
yeah, they're
I'm not
delicious.
worried about
They're
that
great.
at all. So I want to just talk through the pitch deck. Oh, wait, before we get to the pitch deck, actually, I forgot that I have a more wholesale update. So I went out selling wine in the LA market. I saw Lincoln Fine Wines in Venice. I saw a wine bar called Melanie in West 3rd Street, and then Silver Lake Wine. The wines were really well received everywhere. Lincoln took both the red and the white. I'm not showing the sparkling because we only have 50 cases left and it's selling so well in the tasting room that I kind of want to make our margin on that where we can. So Lincoln's going to take both the red and the white, and they're actually going to put them in their natural wine section because these wines are made naturally except for the addition of SO2, which is a bit of a point of contention in the natural wine community anyway. Like, how much can you add? But these are relatively low SO2 wines. So that's really good. Silver Lake Wine I have to follow up with today, so I'll let you know how that goes. Melanie Wine Bar is going to put the Wineslut White on by the glass. So that's really good. We got 3 more placements. I'm seeing Stanley's Wine Bar tomorrow. I'm trying to get an appointment at Sight Glass up in Hollywood, and then over at Wally's in Beverly Hills, Wally's Wine. So they have a restaurant and a retail store. So I'll let you know how that goes. But I think we got 3
Can I
placements.
can I come to you to one of these? See how
Yeah.
you see how try to learn your spiel and yeah,
Yeah. Let me
yeah,
see.
okay,
Yeah, tomorrow, if you want to go to Stanley's with me. Actually, you and I did an event at Stanley's for the happy
yeah,
hour
yeah.
event. So, and I'm bringing Hollis Bowles wines too.
We'll
But
talk
yeah,
about
if you
it.
want to come
Okay.
with me, yeah, we can do that. All right, pitch deck now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the very front page, we list right up front, we're like, this is an investment opportunity, right? An exciting investment opportunity and I think this is a really cute phrase, for those who occasionally break the 2-glass rule. And we went over that phrase from what I remember, because we developed this pitch deck like a year ago or something. Like we went over that phrase a lot because it was like for people who, it wasn't like to get drunk, but for people who like to be tipsy or whatever it was. And we wanted to take that out of it and be like, if you have 2 glasses of wine, in other words,
It's
like
okay.
not make it, it's okay. Like not make
Yeah,
it like a sin or not make it about debauchery, because that's not what
yeah.
this is about. This is about like just drinking a couple of glasses of wine.
And I think we just want to establish, the voice right from the get-go, sort of how we. You'll see, I think, throughout the pitch deck, we're taking this very seriously, but also we have, just as we're trying to say that the brand is about joy and fun and approachableness and all that kind of stuff. Like so is the pitch deck. It's like same same sort of yeah, style, attitude.
Right. And then we go on to the next page where I think this is the the problem in the market and what we're solving. It grabs
Yeah,
your attention. It's low price, but not low budget, which that's really our proposition.
yeah.
It's low price, and low price meaning 22 to $25, but the sources that we're getting it from make 50, 60, 70, $100 bottles of wine. So it is not low budget. It's just that we've been able to get the price down. And when we talk about this wine, we're not being like, this wine ages for a long time. This is the vineyard it comes from. And aren't we buttoned up and we have an estate? This is just that this is a fun wine. We want you to take it to the Hollywood Bowl. We want you to sit at, watching a movie outside in the summer, or like sitting by the fireplace with your friends over Christmas. It's like, yeah, just joy, I think, is what we want to exude
And
in
this
this slide.
and this is the proposition. There's a big bottle right in your face, and it's like,
Right.
is it grabbing your attention? It's simple, but also, taste complex, and it's not going to cost a lot. So like this, if you think this is going to stand out from all the other wine that's out there on the shelf, or like this should sell you right away.
Okay, and then our next slide brings up me being a master of wine, because wine slut to me doesn't exist outside of that. We want the highbrow, lowbrow dichotomy of like, I'm a master of wine, but I'm making a really fun, approachable wine with like a great name. And so we have this tagline: you don't need to be a master of wine to enjoy wine slut, but we needed one to make it, which is, I think, you made up, which is really cute. And we talk about the negociant style of this, and we frame it in the way of, like, we talked about this last time, this pre-1960s winemaking in Europe, really in Burgundy in particular, this modern twist on a classic style of winemaking. And that's why our label is retro too, because it's like a retro winemaking style, and we're kind of putting that into the packaging a little bit. We talk about how we blend the wine. The wines are, we don't know how it's going to go. The white is a blend of 3 different varieties, the red of 2 different varieties, the sparkling of 2 different varieties. Actually, the rosé is just Grenache so far, but who knows? And then we move on to slide 5 about, like, what if somebody reads this who's not, like you said, they're not in the wine business. What is, like, who cares? Like,
Even people that are in the
not?
wine business, I think, don't often know what a master of wine is. They think it's just a somm. They don't know the difference. I have that conversation all the time.
Why would you say such hurtful things to me on this
Yeah.
podcast? I'm not a master sommelier. I'm a master of wine. And we talk about what being a master of wine is, along with me being covered in grape juice when we're pressing in grape juice, I should say, in wine, because we're pressing when the wine is finished.
Yeah.
So this next slide, I think, also talks about what you were saying early on, which is that most people don't know the difference between good and bad wine, but we're giving them the good stuff anyway. It's like, if someone's not sophisticated, I hate that word, but when we say a sophisticated palate, I guess I more mean like an experienced palate, someone who's drinking wine a lot.
I mean,
They might not. What?
I consider myself in that category. Like, I drink wine a lot. I know good wine. You've exposed me to a lot of great wine. But if I'm out on my own, I am still not really deciphering all the details to decide what I want to drink that night. I'm often making my, choices, probably like a lot of the people make their choices with, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being in that group. I'm one of those group. I still know when I like something that's good. So
Yeah. And when you go to the store, you might look and say, I like that label. And that's our
yeah,
point here.
I mostly just look at the alcohol content, because I've learned, like, I like a lower alcohol content wine and everything that goes
Oh,
along with that. You know,
I didn't know that. I mean, I
yeah.
knew you like a lower alcohol content wine, but I didn't know you actually looked at it now.
I do look at it, but I think that's a good benchmark. I can sort of determine other factors based on what I see. If I see the alcohols at a certain level, I kind of know it's probably going to gear. These other factors are going to taste this way.
I go into Whole Foods and look at the wine section all the time. And I'm like, if I were buying wine at Whole Foods, which I have done, but I don't do normally, like, looking at the these selections, what would I buy if I were a consumer? Like what stands out to me as a label? So I think the idea behind slide 6 here is that, we're putting it in a package that people love and that kind of comes through to slide 7. Sometimes I look at slide 7 and I'm not sure we need it. It feels maybe a little redundant.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe we end up taking that out. And then we talk about the market and the total retail value of sales. Like this is again geared toward an investor who might not know much about the wine market and what price points are selling. And they've just
This is essentially just making our case. The market is big, even if it's down a little bit. The market's huge, and that our price point fits in right in with the current type of wine that's actually not dropping terribly and doing well. So it's like, here's who we're targeting, and that's our price point, and there's a lot of money up for grabs. So like you can, if you believe in the idea, you believe in what we're doing, there's a way to make some money on this in the end.
Yeah. And our next slide, which would be slide 9, if anybody's following along, that we want Wineslut to be a global brand. So what we want to say to an investor is, by the way, I just also want to say that this is just on this podcast, you and me talking about what we're doing. We are not, this is not a request for money from anyone, because we would be very specific about who we would take money from. It may or may not be someone listening to this, but this is not a pitch. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. This is about us talking about our pitch.
You can email me if you're...
But when we have talked to one particular person that we've been talking to, his name is Warren. Are we allowed to say his name? We're not giving his last name. Yeah. We want him to know, because he's maybe taking this out to show to some people who he knows who might be interested, that we want this to be a global brand. And so we provide numbers about how big the market is, where they're growing. We're talking about China, Australia, New Zealand, the UK. We are going to seek international distribution, or one of the other things that we've talked about with a company in New Zealand. And I've kind of lost touch with them, because we really need to be thinking about how we're growing very carefully. Like, do we want to do a licensing deal with someone in New Zealand where they pay us $1 for every bottle of wine that they sell, but we allow them to put Wineslut on their New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc? One of the things that we talked about with this New Zealand wine company was that I would have to taste the wine to be like, I have to put my stamp on it to say, yes, it's okay that Wineslut goes on this label. It fits the aesthetic, flavor wise of what we're trying to do. But licensing is something that could absolutely, like, that we're looking for in the future.
Yeah. I just want to mention, you did mention one thing about, we should maybe remove this slide, that if we were giving this deck to investment type people, investment bankers, that kind of thing, this deck would have to be 6 or 7 pages long. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, I don't, I leave that to you as our chief growth officer to figure out what we put in this deck and what we don't put in this deck. I think there is, some of the stuff that can be removed. In slide 10, we talk about who our target market is. You and I worked with a wonderful young woman. Her name is Haley Ennis, about developing our ideal customer. So somewhere between the ages of, 30 and 60, right? Is our target demographic. People who are willing to spend like $25 on a bottle of wine. If you're only spending $8 on a bottle of wine, you're not our customer. That's not where we're going with this. Totally, what I've been hearing from retailers is that they used to have these large sections when you walked into a store of like a table, and it would say, these are our $15 bottles of wine. And then a Gen Zer walks in, grabs a bottle because all they're going to do is spend $15. But the truth is, with inflation, Gen Zers are used to almost, I would say, paying more for wine than even millennials have been historically paid for. And I'm willing to bet, and I've heard this from, again, anecdotally in the market, that Gen Zers don't think much of paying $20 for a bottle of wine. So almost every retailer that I know has upped that section from $15 to $20. I mean, that's a 25% increase. But it's $5. So we're counting on that in a way, for Gen Zs to be like, yeah, I want to spend $22 on a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And then in slide 11, we've got our entire product lineup, which does look very nice, if I don't say so myself. You took very good pictures. Well done. And then in slide 12, we talk about alternative packaging, because canned wine has become really popular. We sell Wineslut in Sweden right now, but over 60% of wines sold in Sweden is bag-in-box, which might surprise people, but Sweden has a monopoly where wine can only be purchased retail and state-run stores. It's called the Systembolaget. And in the Systembolaget, 60% of the wines that consumers are buying are in bag. And truthfully, for Wineslut, it makes sense. I think it's just a really great opportunity for us to look at single serve for people to take to concerts, again, to do in concert venues. I had a great conversation with a guy who cans wine. I learned so much about what people are buying in concert venues compared to what they're buying at like parks in the summer where they have food trucks or whatever. It's all different. What they're buying on airlines, like all the sizes are different, and we could bottle in all of those. But it was like, what would make sense for us to start?
I think we were also talking about cans would be good for the tasting room.
Cans would be really good for the tasting room for us to keep samples fresh on days that are slow. So on like a Tuesday, wouldn't it be nice to open a can of wine instead of a bottle? In 2 days, you have to throw out the bottle. And if you end up throwing out this much of a canned wine, what difference does it make really? Whereas if you throw out this much of a wine and bottle, it's kind of a bummer. So save us a little bit on samples. Then we get into a little bit with slide 13 on the name. One of the things that we don't have in here are brands with the word slut in them. Egg Slut over at the Beverly Center. And I see I think there's several Egg Sluts. Then also Slutty Vegan, the vegan fast food chain in Atlanta. You and I, they did a pop-up here, up on, I don't know, Melrose. And you and I went there. But I think maybe we want to add that in.
Yeah.
You have
I
thoughts?
think about that. I mean, I think it would be good. I know that Slutty Vegan got a very nice infusion of investment. Egg Slut's been around for years. It's a good idea. Does it dilute what we're trying to do at all? That there's other things that use the word slut?
Yeah,
Do we want
maybe
to do we want to be as fresh and like I don't think it dilutes it, but I think for an investor, if like does it somehow dilute the novelty at all? Might be something we could talk about when we actually start talking to someone and they're like, let's talk about that name. That's when we bring it up. But I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Something to think
So
about.
maybe it doesn't go in the slide. Maybe it's something that we verbalize. Somebody challenged me at the tasting room the other day. They were like, "Do you really think this is that original of a name? Wasn't Book Slut the original slut name?" Or somebody who was like taking the word slut, and I was like, "Book Slut?" And they were like, "Yeah, it was like 20 years ago. It was a
Never heard of
blog
it.
on something. I haven't either." She's like, "It doesn't exist anymore." But I also was like, "It's okay. I'm allowed to use this too. Like I'm allowed to use the word slut." She didn't mean it any other way than just maybe she mostly meant it, and it isn't super original. But everybody seems to think it's original because they're so shocked when they come in and see the name at the tasting room. So we talk about Virgin Airlines, FC UK, so French Connection UK, the wine Bitch, which this brand's been around for 20 years. When I was at Lincoln Fine Wines, I talked to one of their lead salespeople there. His name is Lance, and when we were talking about the Wineslut name, he was like, "Oh my God." When I first worked retail and somebody came in to show us the wine Bitch, and we were like, "Oh God, do we do this?" And they tasted the wine. And this is when Australian Shiraz was like all the rage, and it was like a $10 bottle of wine. And so they were like, "All right, we're going to buy 3 cases or whatever." And they put it on the floor and it sold out like the first day they put it on the floor. So they were really worried about the name. I don't know what's more aggressive, Bitch or Slut, but it just said Bitch on it. Instead of like a cutesy wine slut. I don't know. It's kind of cute.
Yeah.
Fat Bastard. I don't even know if it's around anymore, but Fat Bastard, the name came from the 2 winemakers who were in tasting the wine after they were just about to bottle it, and they were tasting it out of barrel or tank, and they went to taste it, and one of them said, "Oh, this is one fat bastard." That's my Australian accent. And so that's how the name came about with Fat Bastard.
Yeah. And again, this is all, that's also showing, the data that we could find about their annual sales. I mean, they're doing healthy numbers, or they were.
Yeah. Next, we go to talk about case studies for wines. We talk about The Prisoner, White Girl Rosé, Meiomi, Miraval. And I want to talk more about that when we get to feedback on our pitch deck from one person in particular. But what we're talking about is Wineslut will be a brand that we hope to sell one day. It doesn't mean that we don't want to be involved in it. It just means that by selling it, you have so many more resources behind you to kind of make it a global brand. it's not about a cash grab.
Yeah.
It's really about growth.
I also think that as AI and things like that start to scale up, like people are going to really value things that are made by people
Hmm.
and that are, and so I think even if we're acquired by someone, it would be really important to maintain that level of input and that and to still infuse the brand with that. So none of this, yeah, none of this is to sort of like get it on a factory line and start like getting it out there as fast as we can. It's really just the resources and to spread it as far and wide as we can.
Agreed. Next up, oh, Wineslut tasting room. Slide 17. I skipped a couple because it was a little not redundant, but just more information about what we just
Yeah.
talked about selling the brand.
I
The
will
most important,
just to
yeah.
go back to 16 real quick, which just shows the name on like a sign. This is important because I discovered that when I did pitch decks for raising money for movies, that the slide that often the investors would stop on, especially if they're with their friends. Often you meet investors out for a drink or a lunch or something, and they bring people with them. They want to know what their friends think. They would always stop on a slide where I mocked up a movie poster on a bus stop sign because that they can envision, that they've seen before. They know what that means. They know what that feels like. So really, this is just to imagine the name on a sign outside a storefront of a tasting room, and often that will have more resonance than all the data and all that other kind of stuff. And
That's hilarious to me. But that leads us to something that I feel like an investor, not just an investor, but anybody can touch and feel, and that's a tasting room. And a tasting room is really important because you need a flagship store that people can come in and experience. Because wine is an experience and it should be tasted, it should be felt, it should be talked about, and we want to maybe open a tasting room just honestly for convenience purposes somewhere around Los Olivos, Solvang, Santa Ynez. But you and I have talked about maybe something in Charleston, South Carolina, because that's where maybe another partner that we have is located and might be interested in opening something. We've talked about Palm Springs because we just saw that hall, which is a really pretty shishi fancy Napa winery, has opened in Palm Springs. They're connected to a hotel, right? You went there. What
yeah,
did you think
yeah.
about the Palm Springs tasting room for Hall?
I've only been there on like a Friday and a Saturday, so very busy, but it's connected to the lobby of a brand new fancy Thompson hotel, so it's a very good foot traffic. So that's a really ideal location. But yeah, higher end, very different than the tasting rooms in like Los Olivos and things like that. Very sort of put together and
It's very Napa.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure it looks like restoration hardware fancy
Yeah,
compared to Los
yeah,
Olivos, where I think most
yeah.
of us are more IKEA.
But
I'm not.
people, but it, like doing well, and I'll be curious to keep tracking it and seeing how it does.
Yeah, we'll see. So the
Exactly.
next slide is slide 18. And this is maybe my favorite slide because it's all about the merch. And I'm typically not a merch person, but when I've seen how excited people get when they come into the tasting room to buy a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, I just think there's opportunities for more things. You're so funny. You've got like an iPhone case on here. You've got a cutting board. We do have one cutting board for sale. Someone made us one, and a clock, a shopping bag, and a wine key, a little stemless glass, and we have two pictures with actual Wine Slut t-shirt and sweatshirt purchasers who said that we could include their pictures here. So, and one of them is a woman who is maybe 85 years old and she's wearing a Wine Slut
Yeah.
shirt.
And I think we'd be a lot more thoughtful with actually the branded merchandising. This is really just to sort of give an overview of like, I think this is a real growth opportunity. People love the name. And I think even if people aren't even wine drinkers, this is a potential area of huge growth and could sustain a lot of the profit making in the future as well. If this could really be honed in and managed right.
Yeah, and our most recent piece of merchandise is dog toys, plush, squeaky dog
Yeah.
toys.
I
Very
should add those in
popular.
here. Take one of these fake
Yeah, I
things
know.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, you should. You should maybe
Like
take
the
the clock
clock.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the clock. Nobody needs a wine slut. It's
Yeah.
unless it's like,
But that
oh,
was supposed to be
wine
like
slut.
it's time to drink
I
five
just got
o'clock.
that 5 o'clock. I just
Five
got.
o'clock.
That's why that
Yeah.
wine slut was there. So it's like wine slut o'clock.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cute. Maybe we leave it. Maybe somebody else is going to be more savvy than I am and recognize that. So anyway, merch will be great. Oh my God, we have so many slides.
I know this is
Maybe
virus. This is a long podcast.
yeah, I know it's fine. Um,
Yeah.
The next slide, 19, is our je ne sais quoi, is Amy Christine MW, and it talks a little bit about me. It talks more about the MW. This one might be more of a repetitive slide that we take out because I'm assuming if we end up pitching to somebody, it'll be over Zoom and I'll be able to tell myself, I'm sorry, and I will be able to tell them about me in person and have it not be a slide. I don't think there's any way anybody is going to read this paragraph. I think.
But remember, the point of a pitch deck, from my understanding, and to the audience that this has been built for, is they're not really supposed to read it through. Nobody does. Like they just jump around. It's like they just have it there.
It sounds like they jumped to page 16, the one with just the sign in it.
Probably.
For us, yeah, just shows a sign of of Wineslut.
But I think it's good to have they'll forget. They'll be like, oh, the friend will ask like, well, who's Amy Christine? What is she again? She's she's the hold on, let me yeah,
Master Sommelier. And I think part of what makes this exciting is like we actually already have a really good team, even though we're not paying anybody yet. And that's you, right? You're the whole creative side. You build the website, you do the labels. You are helping me shoot for our little Wineslut TV show that I'm never going to let go of. I'm going to hold on like a death grip to the TV show because that's one of my favorite things about this. And so we're shooting that, and you're really head of creative. Then we have Haley, who I mentioned, who currently works for Momofuku, but she has been just helping us like on the side because her parents are wine club members. As you know, how do we grow e-com? How do we reach our target market? How do we grow social? Like she's, I don't know, 25, not 25. I think she's 26 years old, 25, 26. And she connects with a certain demographic who I think will connect with Wineslut. And so she's helping us with marketing, and she's helping us with e-commerce. And then we've got Peter. So Peter is always here, who's my husband and my partner in Holus Bolus and the Joy Fantastic. And Peter's here because he's an amazing resource for government compliance, which he does almost all of our government compliance with Holus Bolus. He handles a lot of the legal stuff, but also he's an incredible taster and obviously an amazing winemaker. He's my insurance. I really like this wine. Can you taste it and tell me I'm not crazy, right? Like the way we do with this with Holus Bolus is we do everything together. And the truth is with Wineslut, it is like you and I, it's our little baby, but we don't do this without Peter. He also helps me hand bottle it. He also, if we bring the wines into the winery, he helps do all the blending and puts it into tanks. So we have Peter listed as our consulting winemaker, which he very much is. And then we've got a part-time employee, and he's also a wine club member. His name is Josh Smith, and he is going to serve as kind of like how we approach investors, look at the finances, run QuickBooks, do the financial side of things, because I don't think that's your cup of tea and it's not mine. And Peter does it, but he doesn't want to do it. So that's that.
Yeah. He comes from a background of corporate development of finance, and he's there to give someone some sense of comfort that their money will be handled properly, basically.
Correct.
The next slide really about how we're making it happen now, which I think is a big question. Like, you have no money, so how are you doing it? Slide 25 talks about how we're doing it. And then just how we grow. I think everyone wants to know, like, how do you do this and stay scrappy? And this is a little bit more of like, we'll continue the bootstrapping sort of approach, even if we get money, which is the truth. Is that we're going to be wearing many hats. We have sort of a 5-year plan and our 5-year plan has been, semi-profitable by year 3 to 4, if we do it right. So it's really just built that way, and just how we plan to do it. And then a little roadmap of how we plot this out. We're not going over the actual financials in this one, right?
No, let's go over financials in the next.
But you want to talk about some feedback we got about some negative feedback, and just quickly approach, like, talk about those.
Yeah, absolutely. So we sent this out to a couple of people, and I'll just talk to you about, I think, the feedback that was the most interesting to me. One of the slides that we have is on scaling, and my friend Adam got back to me. He's a business guy. He's also a wine club member. He's a wine enthusiast. They spend money on wine. They drink wine, and they're really interested in this product because they're also interested on a Tuesday night. I mean, they might open a $100 bottle of wine, but they also might want to open a $25 bottle of wine, and they like Wineslut. So he said that when he read this last slide that we put up on scaling, he wasn't really seeing that we were telling people what needs to happen between 1,000 cases to 25,000 cases. How do you grow in the wine business that way? Because right now we're working with small producers. So when I'm buying the Pinot Noir and the Gamay, I'm buying this from friends and we're making 150 cases. And that's because I'm buying 2 barrels, 3 barrels from each and we're blending it together. But how do you scale to 25,000 cases and keep your product integrity and keep your quality high? I've been talking to a dear friend of mine. Her name's Mary Margaret McCamick. She's a master of wine. Her husband his name is Trevor. He makes wine for another winery that makes like a lot of wine. They have like a custom crush facility, but we've been in talks to try to figure out how his winery, the winery that he works for, can help Wineslut grow. And what we would be doing is at the stage of doing 25,000 cases, partnering with a custom crush facility and probably honestly buying grapes at that point instead of being a negociant, and directing the style of winemaking and blending it later. So I don't want people to think when they look at this that we don't have a plan to scale. It's just that we aren't there yet. So Trevor and I are talking, but we're not at the point to where we're talking about how we grow to 25,000 cases. The truth is, next year, if an investor came to us right now, it is February 10th of 2025 and said, I want us to be scaled by August. We could do that. We really could do that. Yeah. 25,000 cases, if we haven't given people the right parameters, I don't know. But 5,000 cases is easy. 10,000 cases would be easy. But because wine has very much a season, once we get past May, it would be very hard to try to find wine to bottle that was good. You know what I'm saying? For us to be able to sell it in this next cycle. So we would almost have to wait until the following January to get started on it again. That doesn't mean that we can't do stuff in the meantime. It doesn't mean that we can't open a tasting room or at least try. But I think what he was saying is that we have not put in the pitch deck how we plan to scale and who we plan to work with. So I don't know whether we do that or whether we just talk about it, but that's something that he said.
I think that's difficult to do in a pitch deck because, like you said, it's all time based. You'd have to know what the investment you were getting and at what point it was going to drop. Then you start really making those meetings go further, because right now it's a little hard to, especially now when we have like a short window of a couple months before then things would shift. So I don't think this product roadmap is sort of a super specific. It's a little bit of a broad view. And then I think we could go into each one of these little buckets and talk about what actually would happen and what we'd be doing, the steps we'd be taking and how we'd achieve it.
Yeah. And another thing that Adam said is like, he wanted to see what step changes that we need to account for. For instance, going from manual bottling to bottling on a bottling line. How do we account for that, and what changes? How does that change the cost? Is it for better or for worse? Bottling on a bottling line, because it's not just me and Peter, costs more money per case, because right now it costs us $0 per case because the machine's paid for, and all it basically costs us is whatever nitrogen or argon we use. We use nitrogen to sparge the bottles, and our labor is always free because I never get paid for anything.
Anyway, that's great. All that's a great prompt, and we probably should have all that figured out. So if we get asked, we can immediately provide it, and we should know too. Let's figure it all out. Let's figure all those different scenarios out.
Yeah. Well, I definitely know the scaling part of it. For Trevor, what I said was they would take care of everything it would have to be everything except the label. So glass, corks, bottling, wine, everything in an in case for under $85, preferably somewhere around $70. But that's on them to figure out how they can do that for us, right? That's kind of what you're getting when you're doing a custom crush thing. So whether we need to go through each and every step, I don't think that matters, but how do we get our case price down, and who are we working with to do that? So we need to talk about this, and I'll put this in an email that maybe we're both on the same page about that. The other thing he mentioned was wine blending and the label, which we've already talked about, but then we got feedback from another person who did not like the deck. I want to say that Adam loved the deck. They really loved everything about it. He just wanted clarity on a few things, which is completely fair. We sent it to someone else who saw it and said, our sales pitch was muddy. They wanted to know what was our unique selling proposition. This person said, the wine market was down in 2023 and 22, and in 2024, it was flat. Major wine and spirits companies are reporting major inventory overhang and diminishing sales. So, what do we actually think we're doing? Why are we starting a wine brand right now? I just want to respond to that and say they're huge wine companies that have a lot of wine to sell. And when the market fluctuates 3%, they're going to feel that. We don't feel that the way that we do. Now, maybe if we're making 25,000 cases, we do. But like that doesn't mean we stop dreaming. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we stop trying. That's kind of how I feel about that. I don't know. You have anything
Also,
to
I feel like
say?
it's all cyclical. We all know that, like things are up and
Right.
down and up and down, and we're not talking like those guys do how many cases? Hundreds of thousands of cases. I mean,
Millions,
like
millions
millions
of
of cases.
cases.
Like you said, like a 1% change is on millions of cases is a major hit. 1% change on 20,000 cases is just an adjustment.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think her next comment is basically telling us that we're out of date with the market. Like the wine market is aging out. Boomers are drinking less, and they've been really driving the market. And she's not wrong about that. And that, again, this, oh my God, this conversation about Gen Zs and millennials is just going to kill me at some point. But they're doing cannabis, they're drinking spirits, they want to buy non-alcoholic cocktails and canned products. So the big wine companies are seeing this future. They're making changes. What are we doing? We're just bottling wine in 750 mils and putting a cute label on it. Like, who do we think we are? It was kind of how I took this. We are going to work in alternative packaging, but we're just not there yet. I very much want to have this other non-alcoholic wine brand called Wine Nun, N-U-N, as opposed to Wine Slut. I kind of like the opposite there, the slut and the nun, but also the nun on N-O-N-E and N-U-N, the play, in case somebody wasn't getting that. I love that I had to explain that. But her weirdest piece of
I would
feedback
just before
was,
you say
oh
the
yeah,
weirdest piece of feedback, I just want to say this also might also go into her weirdest piece of feedback is like sometimes it's just not for them. They just
correct.
don't get
Yeah,
like it when like every big success story has a million no's in the room and a million people that just don't get it. So I don't think we were trying to satisfy everyone's thought on this. You either sort of buy into what we're trying to do or you don't. So some of that stuff is about taste and personal feeling and where they are and their and their aspirations of where they want to put their money and things like that. And that's why it's a big open world out there.
right. And it's like just to listen to naysayers. It's like you want to be smart. You want to pay attention to the market. But
Yeah,
I'm so sick of being told no and being told I can't do things. Like particularly with the TV show, it's like I don't know. I'll figure it out. We'll try to figure
yeah,
out something. It might not look the way we originally intended it to look, but
yeah.
it'll be something that's pleasing to us. So this is the weirdest piece of feedback that we got. I'm just gonna read the sentence directly. Okay. The pitch deck reads angry. Too much like I want to make a company and sell it for a lot more than I am dedicated to this product and my heart is in it for the long haul. I was so offended by that. I wasn't offended by anything else because I've heard all this other stuff, but to tell me that my bright, fresh, fun, very pink, because we relied on Wineslut Rosé a lot as kind of as the image, is angry is just not true. And I didn't actually think about this until today because the word angry is such a specific word when I feel like, and you and I talked about this earlier, that our pitch deck is so joyful. I feel like you and I are people that at this latter part of our lives, one of the things that we've been saying is we want to wake up every day and try to fill our day with joy because we only have so many days left. If we have 30 years left, maybe we're lucky. But how interesting it was for someone to tell a woman who's trying to start a company that my heart isn't in it, that I'm not dedicated, that this is a money grab, and that I'm angry. Like what an interesting perspective. Do you have
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
I mean, I just don't even, yeah, I think that's a really interesting perspective on it because it's, when you look at the deck and then just look at the language and the visuals, there is not a single angry sentiment in there. It's all about, our headlines are, are you serious about that name? You betcha.
Yeah.
Vibes, good vibes, and whimsy, and even your photo that we use is you on a barrel of wine, all covered in grape juice, and sort of looking whimsical, and it's like I was trying to find where there's an angry moment. So you have to sort of step back and think like this hit a nerve for some reason, and you hit a nerve because a lot of what we do in the deck is talk about you and talk about how you're a master of wine. We sort of double down on that and try to explain that to people who may not know what that even means, and that how few women in the world are masters of wines, which I don't even know we talk about in the deck, but it's sort of one of the most impressive things about you that I know. How much work it took you to get there. I think all feedback is great to take. I looked through the deck and tried to see what might have prompted that, but at the same time, like I just think this person did not like it. Maybe they didn't like the name. Maybe they were like it triggered a nerve that they didn't even realize what what it was, and it made them react that way. I don't think it's actually about what we were doing and the deck itself. It was about something else. And I think that's the most valuable takeaways. There are going to be people out there, I'm sure. We've experienced very little of it, but even when we had our tasting event, wasn't there one person who like wrote a nasty, message or something? Like there are going to be people out there going to be who aren't going to react well to it, and it's not something that I think we can really control. We just have to pay attention to it, know it's going to, be ready for it.
Yeah, someone basically told me I was degrading myself, which I'm like, anyway. But
So I don't know you at all. You degrade yourself every day.
every day. I think it hit a nerve with me because there was not a single person in my life that would describe me as not dedicated to what I'm
Yeah.
doing, not
Yeah.
and not having my heart in it. Like
Yeah.
that's just somebody, it's fine. It doesn't know me. This person is a hardcore wine collector of very expensive wines, probably Burgundy, Bordeaux. They love French wine, Italian wine. And I think you're right. It is not their thing. When they see something like this, they just see kitsch and they see like that it's maybe diluting the fine wine market. But the people who are buying our wine, they may or may not be in the fine wine market. I have plenty of people that come in that buy Wineslut that also collect Burgundy. Again, the two aren't mutually exclusive, but I think for this person, it was mutually exclusive. Just to call me not dedicated was,
Yeah.
it hurt my,
It's
hurt my
ridiculous.
feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
I wrote back, just so you know, I don't know if you know this, but I just wrote
no.
back, thank you so much. What great feedback. And what am I going to say? I'm
Yeah.
not going to argue. If anybody wants to give us feedback on this,
Yeah.
I'm more than welcome to take
Yeah.
it.
I was
But
going to say this is an evolving thing. We're no like I don't pretend to be a genius at raising money or anything. So like any feedback is great. I take it all. Like it's all this would all be very helpful. We're actually good or bad. Like please like leave us some comments. Let us know.
yeah. And then let's just go in and talk money next time. Like, what do we
Sure.
need to get a case of wine in for? How do we make that happen with commissions and shipping? And how do we all make money at this? Like, you will mostly lead that conversation, I think, but I'll help out when I can.
Great.
All right, we're at an
This
hour
is
and 10
fun.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fun.
Think anyone made
Very
it this
fun.
far?
Have we ever made it this far? We've never
No, I think
talked this
anyone made
long.
it this far listening.
No, nobody made it this far. But it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's like with the
Yeah.
podcast with me and Cynthia, we're the only two people that listen, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Hey, it was fun.
No, my friend Rachel, who's a wine club member, she listened to the entire thing last time and really loved it. So maybe she's listened this far.
You know, it'd be a good podcast
Thank you,
to do
Rachel.
at some point. Also, just to wrap this up, is we should actually maybe do an actual pitch podcast where we're pitching the company and the brand because we need practice on that, right?
Yeah,
We
let's try
sort
to
of
get
did it.
Peter's friend Scott Goldstein. Like he would be
Yeah.
really great because he actually
Okay.
does invest in a lot of things. And I really don't
Right.
want to take money from friends at all. That's not what it
Yeah.
would be for. But it would be about him giving us feedback. Let me ask
Yeah.
him if we
Okay.
can just do a faux pitch. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds fun. All right, you're only about 20 feet away from me. Are you having lunch?
I'm about to ask what you're making.
Nothing for you.
No,
Okay.
nothing now. Okay.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.